I'm Caitlin, and welcome back to the Lit Review. Today we are going to be going through a bunch of short books that you could read for the GreekGodAthon, or, if you're just looking for some short book recs to help you get out of a reading slump. I'll link my personal announcement video in the cards, as well as down below. I'll also link out Esme from Bookish Buddies' full announcement video for the GreekGodAthon if you're interested in participating. Basically, it's a readathon that's going to take place throughout the month of March. There are 2 teams, 14 co-hosts, and a whole heck of a lot of prompts. My team, Team Hermes, as part of Team Control, yes, there are multiple teams. It's only a little confusing, but we'll get you squared away. So my team, Team Hermes, our prompt to satisfy is to read a short book because we are the winged messenger god. We're trying to get our messages delivered quickly and moving along. So the way that the scoring in the readathon works is you really want to try to complete your god's prompt if you are aligned with my specific god of Hermes, or if you're part of Team Control and Hermes is like one of your teammates, you're trying to hit my prompt as well. But if you're on the opposing team, Team Chaos, you still can, I believe, get like 3 points for completing my prompt as well. So regardless of where you're falling during this readathon, I'm here to help you check off those prompts and inspire you to pick up some more short reads. I think this is something we all sorely need in our lives. Because it's just nice to take a breather from some of our long reads. And honestly, sometimes short reads help me get through a reading slump. So regardless of what inspires you to come check out this video today, I'm going to go through some of my favorite short reads or short reads that are on my radar to help us all pick some good little short read books. I should also say before I get too far into this video that when we say read a short book, we're not policing you and giving you a page number of what classifies short. You are going to be the ones who understand your reading experience way better than any of us hosts are going to. So for you, that could mean like short as in page number. It could be an audiobook listen, or it could be something that you are confident you can get through in 1 to 2 sittings as a reader. So I've kind of broken this out by genre, and they're really specific genre picks to me and who I am as a reader. There are a ton of short options out there for you. Most of these I have either read and loved, or am really hoping to love them because they're on my radar and books I would love to consume sometime soon. So I'm going to start with some of the ones that feel really intuitive, like graphic novels. Graphic novels and comics are usually pretty short, and they're a great way to kick off your reading experience. So I have some favorites from things that I have read in recent years, or things I'm hoping to read. So one of the most obvious and most fun picks for this readathon in particular is going to be Lore Olympus by Rachel Smythe. So even though this is comparatively dense to some of the other graphic novels I'm going to show you, this moves so quickly. It is a very fast-paced graphic novel, in large part because on the page, there's a lot of margins, there's a lot of white space, but the art is stunning, and highly recommend this because, well, it's called Lore Olympus, and it is a Hades and Persephone retelling in a quasi-modern world. It's really gorgeous, really emotional. This is book 1. Book 2 is going to come out later this year. I believe it's also a webcomic, so there's other ways to access this content as well, but really loved this, so I highly recommend this as a pickup in general, but definitely for this readathon. Then you could pick up either of the books in this duology, which is the Check Please duology by Ngozi Ukazu. I have book 1 here. Book 2 is somewhere else in this apartment. I don't know, but really adore this hockey series, this LGBTQIA plus hockey series. Super cute, very consumable. And again, really love the art style. It goes really fast, and it takes you through like all 4 years of our main character's college experience and his budding relationship with the team captain of the hockey team. Very precious, very heartwarming. I don't have like Heartstopper by Alice Oseman on this list, even though like obviously you could go there. Like they're amazing graphic novels. I deeply enjoy them, but I just thought that was like something that you've probably had recommended to you a bunch. Then for like the literal tiniest of options, the Tea Dragon Society by Katie O'Neill. adore this. This is just like such quick, good serotonin, really good representation for LGBTQIA+, as well as like disability rep throughout. There are multiple versions of this, or like sequels to it. So this is the first one, the T-Dragon Society, but there are other things within the T-Dragon universe that you can read that are equally short and adorable. I believe there's also a spin-off that's like Aquacorn Cove by Katie O'Neill. The art is adorable. So the color palette is like saturated, soft colors, which sounds counterintuitive, but it'll make sense when you get a chance to read it. Really, really fun series overall. Highly recommend. Another big successful graphic novel for me that I read last year was The Magic Fish by Trung Le Nguyen. Really highly recommend this. I mean, obviously, if you're participating in the GreekGodAthon, you probably enjoy mythology to some extent. This book tackles more Eastern-oriented mythologies, I think from Vietnam specifically. I love the heart and the storytelling. The art is stunning. And the protagonist is a young boy grappling with how to explain to his immigrant parents that he is gay. And he kind of explores this and tries to discover this through fairy tales. And the art is so gorgeous. And the fairy tales are going to seem like intimate and familiar to you too. I just can't recommend this highly enough. This is one of my favorite graphic novels from last year. I also think another book that I would highly recommend for this, but I don't have here in front of me, is The Prince and the Dressmaker by Jen Wang. So if you like The Prince and the Dressmaker, put a little thing up here, please also go check out The Magic Fish, or vice versa. If this intrigues you, also check out The Prince and the Dressmaker, because like the art is really what reminds me of the two, like just the gorgeous art styles inspired by high fashion in some cases, and like the really powerful storytelling in both of those novels. And then I have one that I am going to recommend, but I haven't read yet. It's on my to-do list. I may read it for this readathon, but it is a spicy take. So this is an 18 plus recommendation because it is a visually explicit novel, so I won't be showing any of the inside pages just on the off chance. But I picked this up at the Rick Bodice when I went in January, and that is, it's a BDSM-oriented graphic novel called Yes, Roya, set in I think like the 60s? Yes. Like, here, I can show you the back. The back is safe. But these are our romantic interests. I have not ever read a graphic novel that, like, from the jump was intended to be a visually explicit novel, is the phrasing I will use. But I'm really interested in this. Like, the story sounds interesting and dynamic. I'm curious about the visuals. Obviously the cover's very sexy. Oh, I forgot to tell you the authors. This is written by C. Spike Trotman, and I believe some of the art and story is by E.A. Denick and Kelly Fitzpatrick. So I'm really excited to pick this one up. This one is a contender for me for the readathon. Sometimes another easy win is the poetry genre when it comes to short books. And I think sometimes we here on the BookTube community get a little like niche in what we mean by poetry. So there's a lot of options for you here. It doesn't have to be what you would associate with like your high school English class. So let's talk about some of your options for poetry. I'm actually in the middle of listening to this on audiobook right now, but I did also pick it up in physical form from my local library, and that is Punching the Air by Ibi Zoboi and Yusuf Salam. I'm halfway through and it is so freaking good. It is like, if you listen to it on audiobook, which I recommend because like poetry sometimes is really fun to listen to out loud because it's intended to be a spoken experience. But I also really enjoy the physical form as well because there is like some shading and art on some of the pages. So it's a good experience either way. This looks bigger than it is because the actual poetry on the page is often like fairly sparse. It's not taking up the full page, and it has a lot of visual impact as well. The audiobook's like 4.5 hours, so I think that would definitely qualify as a short read. Really recommend this so far. Again, halfway in. It is a book about a young Black Muslim boy who is wrongfully convicted of a crime and sent to juvenile detention facility, and to like the weight of the rest of the world's expectation on him and how he is trying to stay true to himself in that process. Again, I'm only halfway in, but it's already one of the most intensely moving books from an empathy standpoint that I've read in a while. So would recommend giving this a shot. Let's see. Going back to my college days, I have 2 books here from the poetry classes I took in college that still live rent-free in my mind all the time. And the first of that is Richard Seekin's Crush. You can see I have tabbed it. There's at least one tab poking out here, but a lot of this book has been written in and annotated because this is one of my favorite poetry books of all time. I may very well reread this. Who knows? Maybe on my March will just be all short books. Wouldn't that be something? But it's just one of my favorite poetry collections. The other one that I recommend quite frequently when folks are looking for a new poetry experience is Love and Index by Rebecca Lindenberg. It's one of my favorite poetry books of all time. Like, I just, nothing will dethrone this for me. It is a very personal collection of poems for the author, for the poet. I'm just going to read the back because I don't think I can coherently express to you the contents of this book without going off the rails on how much I love it. So I'm gonna go here. A man disappears while hiking a volcano. The woman who loves him is left haunted and still loving him. Rebecca Lindenberg's poems tell the true story of her relationship with poet Craig Arnold, who vanished in 2009 while traveling in Japan. Her billowing I Contain Multitude style lays bare the poet's sadness and joy and longing in verses both lyric and narrative. I have mentioned this book, I think, once before on my channel on a video that had like response, but which is not the point. The point is that you may have heard of this. If you like Taylor Swift, please read this book. Like, if you are a Swiftie, I think you will really find connection points for Rebecca Lindenberg's poetic style, particularly in this collection of her work, and the way she ruminates on love, mature love, soft love, hard love, difficult love. Like, it's just all here. It's so good. Sorry, apparently I get very deeply emotional about poetry. Who knew? Former creative writing major. This is a collection of poetry titled Poor Anima by Kathy Zhang. Sorry if you can hear my kitten. He's been shut into the bedroom because he will not leave my microphone alone. So you might hear some very discontented kitten noises. But Poor Anima is a really moving and like lush yet painful description of grief, of the immigrant experience, and really visually descriptive. And it's very short. Highly recommend. And then I have 2 books by the same poet or author here, that one I've read, one that I'm really curious about reading. This was the last book I picked up in 2021, and that is I Hope This Finds You Well by Kate Baer. And this is literally a fascinating read because it's like it's essentially like a very cool form of blackout poetry. In writing her first book of poetry, What Kind of Woman, which I haven't read but would like to, she tackles a lot of ideas about like womanhood, what it means to be a woman in modern times for her. But as a response to that, she's gotten a lot of social media hate or anti-fan mail or articles written about her. And in her processing of the emotions that brought up, is to write like blackout poetry, where you kind of take a text and eliminate words to create a new poetic message. So I love this because you get like the original text and then you get her blackout poetry. It was a very quick read. I read it on the plane after visiting my family for the holidays last year, and I really loved it, and would really like to check out this one, her first book of poetry, but they're both very short. I do have a couple of nonfiction recommendations in this space, just in case that is interesting to you. The first I have, this edition I think is not the most up-to-date edition, but you can find The Body Is Not an Apology by Sonia Renee Taylor pretty easily in its multiple editions. There's even like a journal or workbook that I think you could work through. A lot of the goal of this book is to like kind of dismiss or disabuse ourselves of the notions that like our bodies are not enough, that our bodies are not beautiful no matter what shape they come in, no matter what color they are. The primary goal of this book is definitely about like the idea of radical self-love no matter the cost, and she dives into like what that means, but it's also tackling a lot of issues like racism and like the desire for social justice reform. So there's a lot in here in such a little book, and it was a really powerful read and a good jumping off point if you'd also like to continue like your anti-racism journey. Then I have the physical book somewhere, but I actually highly recommend the audiobook of this one, and that is The Princess Diarist by Carrie Fisher. So this is a pretty slim book, all things considered, but the audiobook really flows well, and it's narrated by both Carrie Fisher and her daughter, because the whole thing takes place as she was shooting the first Star Wars film, her like diary of that time in her life and her reflections on that time in her life. So you get Carrie Fisher's take, but you also get her daughter's. Her daughter reads the diary entries from that time period that Fisher found. So it's both a reflection on that time in her life from when she was writing it, and then it is also sharing a very vulnerable poetic space of when she was that 19-year-old filming and experiencing like fame for the first time. It's a really fast-paced read and a really easy listen on audio, so I highly recommend either the physical or the audiobook. And then last but not least for nonfiction, I do want to recommend Letters to a Young Poet by Rainer Maria Rilke. Rilke is a poet, but this collection is really helpful for inspiring creativity, I think, or like validating the creative experience, because Rilke wrote back and forth with this young poet who was just really inspired by his writing at the time, and like their discussions about the creative relationship and the limitations of drive and writing and like what you need to be a writer, and just the idea that like if writing brings you joy, you are a writer. Like, it's really validating in that way. So I think if you're looking to kind of refresh your creative spirit a little bit, this is a book I would recommend for that. Okay, so I could recommend you probably dozens upon dozens of romance novels for this, especially Kindle Unlimited in general is probably a great way to go, because a lot of those books are novellas or quicker novels. So just like blanket statement, that's a good place to start for a short, sweet novel. Specifically, one that I'm interested in taking on in the next month is The AI Who Loved Me by Alyssa Cole. This is one that again is showing up in my Romancing the Tarot series, so I need to read this regardless. But it's also a really cute speculative romance novel about a woman who falls in love with the AI next door. So really short, really cute. Then I don't have a copy of this anymore, but it's a novella from Tessa Dare's Spindle Cove series, and that is Beauty and the Blacksmith. It's cute, it's fast, it's a novella, it's part of a larger historical fiction or historical romance setting that was really adorable. I thought it was like good but not great, but the thing that I would recommend about this one is there's a scene with an anvil that lives rent-free in my mind all the time. So check that one out if you're looking for a short historical romance. Also in the realm of short historical romance, I haven't read this one yet, but it's on my radar. It is Butterfly Swords by Jeannie Lin. It is a time period that I don't see a lot of in historical romance. So this is China's Tang Dynasty. I don't know. I don't know much about this, and I don't want to inaccurately speak to it, but I'm really intrigued by the time period. The cover's really pretty, and it's a pretty short one. It's a Harlequin novel, so it is intended to be pretty like fast-paced and short. I believe Jeannie Lin also has other romances within this era that I might be inclined to check out after reading this. So this is one that's interesting to me. And then another romance that I haven't read yet, but I'm definitely going to at some point. If you enjoyed Talia Hibbert's writing, if you really enjoyed the Brown Sisters series, she has a short read for you that could work. And this is actually a series that I believe has a bunch of novellas and short books, but this one is Bad for the Boss by Talia Hibbert. Unsurprisingly, this is an office or boss romance, so check that out if that's your vibe. And then the last category is kind of like miscellaneous. There's a lot of literary fiction, thrillers, just different options in here overall. So I'm just gonna get through those real quick. And most of them I haven't read, but I'm really intrigued by. So I have a couple of library picks for you here. This one, really tiny. It caught my eye because it was so small in the library, and it is the novella The Hunting Gun by Yasushi Inoue. It is a Japanese translated novel. It is told from 3 different points of view, 3 different women, as they deal with love, death, truth, and loneliness all intertwined. A powerful tale with universal resonance. A lover, her daughter, and the abandoned wife. But very small. Definitely a candidate for me reading this, in part because it's a library book and therefore has a deadline. But it also just sounds like really fascinating, and it's wee. Who doesn't want to check out a nice short read? Along that same line, I have out from the library right now The Starlet and the Spy by Jimin Lee. The cover's really gorgeous. So it's set in 1954 during the armistice for the Korean War. It follows Alice, who is a translator for Marilyn Monroe when she goes on a USO tour. So it's a really quick little novel. It seems like there's a lot of potential interesting factors in here. And I'd never heard of this before, but it looks interesting and it's short. So I'm considering it for this readathon. 2 more that I have heard nothing but amazing things of, but haven't yet read myself. So Every Heart a Doorway by Sean McGuire. Honestly, any of the Wayward Children series are likely to fit the bill for this. Every Heart a Doorway is the first in the Wayward Children's series, though I believe you can kind of read them as almost like companion novels. So this one would work for a couple of different prompts, which is why I'm considering it for this readathon. Not only is it a short read, but it's also got nature on the cover, which helps me because that is one of the other prompts from Team Control. That is, I believe, Demeter's prompt. So this one might actually be a strong contender for me reading this upcoming month. Another book that I am aware of, but haven't had the chance to read yet, and I didn't even realize it was this short, but that's A Psalm the Wild Built by Becky Chambers, and it says a monk and robot book. So there may be more. Basically, robots gain sentience and laid down their tools and do not wish to work or serve humans anymore. One day, the life of a tea monk is upended by the arrival of a robot, there to honor the old promise of checking in. So it just seems like really cute, probably a little thought-provoking, but really fun cover. This could also work for the Demeter prompt as well, so this is another potential contender here. And then another series of novellas that I've read the first one of, and that is All Systems Red by Martha Wells. This is part of the Murderbot Diaries series, and again, very short, very fast-paced read too. And I think this is a great example of like short fiction doing it right. Like it's a really well-constructed, well-paced novel overall, and you could read just the one as like a one-off. You could read the whole series, and they're like really dynamic and interesting. But it is about an AI who is disconnected from their programming and has started to develop their own wants and desires. I want to throw in another audiobook as well. My Sister, the Serial Killer by Oyenkin Braithwaite. Really good, fast-paced audiobook read. So good. And the title kind of says it all. It is about a woman who realizes that her sister may in fact be a serial killer as she is constantly cleaning up Cora Day's mess. And she is usually mostly okay with it until Cora Day turns her eyes on the doctor that she has had a crush on for her entire time working as a nurse. Other things that I don't have in front of me but would still recommend, the very short story, I mean we're talking like 50-something pages, Xingu, that is published individually and you can check out through your local library. It's very hard to find in print, but it is by Edith Wharton, very quick about a send-up of classism and elitism in the book club space. Really funny, really quick, really well written. And then I read this book in like 24 hours, but the first book in the series is Sleeping Giants by Sylvain Nouvel. And again, a little bit of sci-fi, mixed media content told through interviews. I zoomed through this book so freaking quickly. It's book 1 in a trilogy, but the trilogy is complete. So, you know, go forth and conquer more sci-fi. So that is by no means all of the short book recommendations out there. I probably have so many more, but that is what I'm thinking of for my reads this readathon as potential things that I recommend to you for this readathon. I hope that you join us for the Greek Godathon. It's taking place again the entire month of March, and there's a lot of different prompts. All of the recommendations here are for Team Hermes, which is to read a short book book. So hopefully I'll see you there, or if you're not participating in the readathon, hopefully you still found something short and sweet to tempt you to read. So thank you for spending time with me. I hope you have a fantastic reading day. Like and subscribe if you'd like to see more from me or this channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!